good to be here with all of you. I hope, can y'all hear me back in the back?
Yes.
All right, I want to make sure that I understand protocol's already been kind of established, but I want to thank the leadership of Noble for bringing this particular presentation and the fact that you had another presentation yesterday on community engagement. By way of a little bit of background, I was at the IACP last year, and they spent a time talking about community engagement, but there were only maybe 4 people from the community or that I could identify as civilians out of those 18,000. So it was a lot of talk, but I wonder where the rubber is meeting the road. All right, so today's conversation, and it is going to be a conversation if that's all right. The title of this is Protocol, People and Protocols. People actually come first. All right, and we'll talk a little bit about what we do here in Indianapolis, and perhaps it'll be served as a good launch point for many of us. Introductions. Before I go into me, I want to acknowledge some of the members of our team. We have some folks from our community resource district councils. I want to kind of, y'all raise your hands. They're in the room. These are folks who are volunteers in the community who bring neighborhoods, partners, civilians together as part of a system, and you can hear that several times, a part of a system that addresses police-community relations and fosters a two-way dialogue, and what we also say as an accountability partnership, all right? As for me, I'm gonna offer you several things. I'm gonna give you a gift, a context, and a social contract. The gift I'm gonna offer you is, I am the finest black man on the planet. So you get that kind of time.
Yeah.
I know there's a brother who was second place as a captain, he left earlier.
I think that was Mac.
It might have been,
Mac. Yeah,
it might have been, yeah.
Yeah, it was Mac.
He saw me come in, he knew the vote had already been handled.
Yeah, I'm
Poor
here.
cat. And I'm also an IOTA, so I represent that part of the D9. I want to make sure y'all have, and get the protocol out of the way. The context that I offer this conversation in is partner, brother, servant, and friend. Partner, brother, servant, and friend. All right? And the social contract I'm going to offer you, it'll show up several times throughout the presentation, is something that many of us already know. We already have a code among us. As law enforcement, you have a code. We as community folks have a code. I know when I look at this brother and I just do one of these, we just had a full-blown conversation. But we have these codes and we don't always recognize where they're active and where they're not. And the thing that I'm gonna put out to you, just like I put out to IACP, y'all probably have it better than others. But there's a code that keeps community and police separate. It's us and them. And that's a game that we've been allowing to happen in our communities. And it's a code that really does undermine who we are as communities. So the Pelian concept, part of the concept that I put out there, partner, we believe that the police are the community and the community are the police. Me, we. That's the context that we bring this conversation. We're gonna talk a little bit about our journey here in Indianapolis. We're gonna talk about engaging the community. That's a really flashy word, I guess, right? But relationships. So you'll hear some distinctions in how we bring some of that together. We're gonna talk a little bit about our keys to our protocols and some final takeaways from Q&A at the end, all right? Y'all with me?
Yes.
All right, so it will be interactive. I mean, I am fine. Y'all can take the pictures if you need to, but I really want to have a conversation. Question here is, what do you all see? When you see this picture, 2 elephants, what do you see? Come on.
Young bull, old bull.
Young bull, old bull. Okay, what else? Confrontation. What else y'all see?
See the white bird sitting there looking.
Yeah.
White bird chilling, right?
Bird.
Okay. Anything else? Y'all law enforcement, so y'all skilled at situational awareness. What else y'all see?
Rites of passage.
Rites of passage. Anything else? So young bull, old bull, rites of passage, connected those dots, gotcha. And a bird sitting there chilling. All right. And I would say this is also a metaphor of what we see in our communities. There's an African proverb that says, in the fight between elephants, it's the grass that suffers. Oftentimes in our community, we have elephants that are fighting. Whether it's church folk, police, frats, domestics, we have a whole bunch of folks fighting, running all kinds of silos and agendas. And you have some folks sitting there watching, unbothered by it. At least, perhaps unbothered by it. Y'all with me?
Yes.
Y'all read between some of my lines? I'm just throwing it out there.
Yes.
We have these fights, and we're really not at odds. We're really not enemies. We heard rites of passage as one context, all right? But oftentimes what we're dealing with in community conversations about police, community relations, community engagement, it's still an us and them. It's still a fight between elephants. So I lay this out there because we oftentimes have these codes running in terms of our context and the fights. Who's winning, who's right, who's wrong, who's observing, and who's hurting. Y'all with me?
Yes.
Okay. We often have two worlds. And I want to kind of just bring some distinction. Now, you guys, some of the folks in the back have eyes like me. I'll make sure you have this. But I'm not going to read everything, but I'll give you some highlights of the presentation, all right? And we'll make sure you guys get a copy of it. But law enforcement, and rescue me if this is missing, but I heard a law enforcement professional talk about where the context of the law enforcement world looks at things. Maintain public safety and enforcement and authority, right? Is that?
Yes.
That's good? That's all right? All right. Uphold and enforce the law. Hold violators accountable. System or society orientation. So law enforcement tends to not necessarily look at the individual, but says this is part of a broader community mission to keep our society safe. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. And success is sometimes measured in arrests.
Correct.
Gotta be productive.
Right.
Gotta be proactive. Gotta really go after it. There's a difference between law enforcement and crime fighting. Y'all, am I wrong? Am I missing it?
That's right.
Okay. And save lives, the sanctity of life, get home safely. I think we can all agree on that. And the community has a perspective too. Maintain order via consensus and pro-social behavior. I'm sorry, but at my home, during cookouts, there's certain behavior. I don't need a law enforcement professional to be in the room. There's certain behavior that happens, right? My wife knows I do get the big piece of chicken. I usually cook it, so I set it aside, but there's some rules in the way, right? Okay, so yeah, we're together with that, right?
Yes.
Y'all have peach cobbler, make sure you set some aside for Toby. Community tends to see violators as flawed. You have an issue, you have a problem, right? Not that they're bad people, but they have an issue and problem, and they need support and services. That's the kind of conversation that happens at the community level, right? Person-oriented. So when we show up at a system, or at an issue or concern, it's around people. It's not system. It's not society. The way the community tends to look at things. All right? Success is measured by less criminalization, fewer arrests. And saving lives equals less engagement with police. We don't want to see you. I'm being very general here, right? But I'm just giving you a context that many of y'all are familiar with. Y'all come out here to serve us, and you have people who look at you and say, yeah, I know you're sworn, but I don't want to have nothing to do with you. The matter of fact, the moment I see your lights, I have a physical reaction. Am I, yes or no?
Yes.
Some of y'all get pulled over, y'all have a physical reaction too. Yes, no? Am I
Yes.
crazy? Okay.
Yes.
Sanctity of life is still important. Though. It's interesting that both communities, law enforcement and community, still see things around sanctity of life. But I guarantee many of you see people at the worst possible parts of their life. And you're wondering, where's the value of life? Yes, no?
Yes.
Okay. We wonder that too. But oftentimes, when we see an officer-involved shooting, our default is, y'all shot first. Y'all could have done something different. Y'all should have de-escalated. Y'all. It reinforces from the community perspective an us versus them perspective. And when y'all come in to serve, we automatically, in some instances, have a default that says you're the enemy. So sometimes our reaction to you doesn't de-escalate. Am I wrong?
Right.
Okay, somebody eat a piece of chicken in my house, wrong piece of chicken, it's gonna be some furniture moving. We'll call y'all later. Are we together?
Yes.
So you're just giving you a sense of context, folks. There's some similarities. So we're really all in the same boat. But the similarities are, law enforcement says our approach is the right approach. We're doing it right. We do a good job. We have the hardest job. You're the only people who are paid to be around 24 hours a day, taking care of our worst situations and handling more than we're ready to deal with ourselves. Y'all paid to do that. And y'all do a good job. Y'all also say the way the community deals with things is the wrong way to do it. We need more law and order. We need more police. We need more tools. We need more better tactics. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Community says our approach is right, y'all wrong. So y'all similar. Community is the reason we're experiencing negative outcomes. Systems in the community. Got it? And most, I won't say most, but a lot of folks say law enforcement is the reason why we have these problems. Either we don't have enough of you, or when you come into our communities, you police us differently. We have a perception around how y'all do things, particularly in the black community. I'm speaking to Noble, so I'm going to give you some community talk that y'all already know because you're part of the community. Yes? No?
Yes.
And law enforcement doesn't understand what you're going through. And the community doesn't understand. We don't think you understand what we're going through. So there's some similarities in the way we look at the world. It's interesting how we don't always see each other as partners. We live in the same community. If we were really peeling, y'all the community just like we are. You're the police and so are we. So why are we falling out? Why do we even have to have a conversation about community policing if you're the community and the police and we're the police and the community? Why do we even have to have a conversation about community policing? Like that's a new way. Yes, no? Come on.
Right.
That tells us, by virtue of the fact that we have to have these conversations and have to have a conversation about community engagement, it's still an us and them. We still operate in a context that says, this does not work, you're the enemy. How you gonna fix anything with that? Coffee with cops is good, but it's an event. It doesn't represent relationship. I'm not hating on it because we have to have these benchmarks in a relationship to indicate whether or not we're at least dealing with each other. So that's important. But some people, I'm not putting it all on y'all because y'all better than everybody else, right? But IACP, I'm going to talk about them because I can do that right now. They checked a good box. They checked a good box. Everybody trained on CIT. Check. Everybody got mental health first aid. Check. We had several community events. Check. National Night Out. Check. Are you doing everything you can? We have de-escalation training up the wazoo. Check. We got Ida. Check. Are y'all feeling that? Community does a checklist too. And yet the community is the police, community is the police, and the community. I want to make sure this highlights, we have similarities, but we're on two different sides of the coin. And yet we're still going in the same vending machine. I'm just highlighting community resource team. It's not CRT like critical race theory. All right, so when we say CRT, I have a whole set of community be like, ah, that's terrible. We're not that CRT. But community resource team is here, and I wanted to highlight the fact that we talk about police of the community, community of the police. All right, we just had 7 young people shot downtown Indianapolis. One of them was 12 years old. After 11:30. All right? The knee-jerk, not saying it's wrong, I'm just saying legislatures, leadership, the mayor's office, and our police chief will say, do something, because we always put it on y'all. Do something. Curfew. Enforce the law. Yeah? But, where's the first curfew start? Come on.
At home.
Say it again.
At home.
At home. You sure?
It should.
It starts at home, right?
It should.
So do we need y'all to come to every home and ensure that every 12-year-old is not in a place they're not supposed to be? Do we need more law enforcement to do that?
No.
The community is the police. When I was a kid, them streetlights came on and I knew, I'm in trouble. I got to go. It didn't matter what I was up to. It was fun, but I knew. Woo! I didn't realize that time flew, and I didn't have a cell phone, so I couldn't call mom. Say, Mom, I'm on my way. That wasn't gonna work, right? It's interesting. Back then, word of mouth seemed so fast, because how did mom know where I was? Word of mouth. Okay. Then we got fancy. Word of modem. Email, telephone, text, all that kind of stuff, right? It moved even faster. Now we do word of mobile. So we got apps, Guardian app. I'm like, man, I can track where my kids are. Are you kidding me? I wish we had that. Anyway. But the interesting thing is the internet, all those other tools don't take the place of a community that polices itself. If we're not your partners, we're not helping you do your job. And yet we have an expectation, solve it.
Yes. Yep.
It's again, part of that similarity, part of those distinctions I laid out, it's an us and them. It doesn't work. Unless the community is truly partnered with you, then you won't have a curfew violation except for those people who know that they in violation. Like them lights came on 4 hours ago. You still out there. Y'all with me?
Yes.
Okay. Community engagement is nice, but unless it's connected to our community social contract, you will fight a losing battle. If the social contract in our communities don't adjust, or if you don't even communicate the same way, because I guarantee I could do a viral spin event, and I could call 30 people, say, hey, we're gonna have a spin event right down here in front of Crown Plaza, and we'll have kids show up. It wasn't even planned, but it moves faster than y'all. But if our social contract doesn't align, guess who's gonna be charged with fighting it, but guess who gets left off the hook? When we say community resource team, our role, the way we look at it, is the community engagement, but it's not as if we're not part of it. So we have to be in partnership so our social contract, what comes out of our mouths, the kind of systems, our families, our communities, our resources, our organizations, all those tools are used in such a way that they're in service to what you have to do as well. We're true partners. That's just not where we eat donuts together. I did throw that out there. It was a great troll. I'm sorry. It just came out. But I wanted to highlight that in terms of the way we look at it, it's a partnership.
Mm-hmm.
And it only works when we align our social contract in context, in partnership with law enforcement. That's a missing that law enforcement and communities are having all over the country. And even with the best intentions around community engagement, unless those bridges are really aligned, we're bridges to nowhere, roads to nowhere. We'll fight the same thing 20 years from now. CRT talked about purpose and protocol. Many of you can't see this, but I'll just kind of talk a little bit about our purpose is to foster community police relations through regular, sustained, and two-way dialogue. Two-way dialogue. I don't know how many people are used to when a police chief comes in, we say, that's the authority. Yes or no?
Yes.
Many people in the community defer. But true Pelian concepts is that the authority that vested in you comes from the community.
Community. Yep.
So when the community has a habit of deferring, I want to make sure you know that's a habit of setup. It's a deferment of the relationship, as if you're the only one who's responsible for it.
Right.
The community has no agency typically in saying, here's how we want to see policing happen.
Right.
No, you have training.
Mm-hmm.
But that training doesn't show up on our streets, in our homes, at our kitchen tables. If you're the only ones trained, who's now responsible? And I know all of you say, you can't be responsible for everything, but guess what? We defer that authority and you accept it. Unless we have systems, communications that says we have to be in partnership, you will be set up for failure. Law enforcement leadership will be set up for failure. And guess who will blame you? The community.
Mm-hmm.
That does not work. So unless we have really effective two-way communication, dialogue, purposeful engagement, don't just show up and say, hi. There ain't no purpose around that. Mutual respect and accountability. I always put that mutual in there because our role as community unsworn folks, our role is to hold our community accountable. Guess what? Since it's holding the community accountable, it's also holding you accountable. Mm-hmm. Accountability only exists if we have three things in place. Competence. So why are y'all the only ones getting trained?
Right.
So competence is critical. Here's another one. Understanding of the measures used to determine whether there's success or failure.
Right.
You saw earlier, sometimes y'all measure things success in terms of proactive policing. Number of arrests, felonious arrests. Those are some metrics y'all use, right? Yes or no?
Yes.
So unless we agree on those metrics, you won't be able to hold us accountable.
Right.
And unless we're aligned with those, we can't hold you accountable.
Mm-hmm.
So we talk about accountability just as a word, but not as what's required for it to exist. I need to know how you're measuring, and then we need to say, that's a good measure.
Mm-hmm.
The community doesn't say that's a good measure. You're doing busy work.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then the last piece of accountability, agreement. You can't hold people accountable if they don't agree. If they have no alignment with what you're talking about. You might as well be talking about applesauce.
Right.
It makes no difference. So when we talk about accountability, I'm throwing it out to you. We are missing the mark as leaders in this space if we don't bring all three of those together in partnership with the community. And the community is doing the same disservice to you if we don't bring all that together. All right, hour started, and I'm going to move this rather quickly, so I hope I don't leave y'all behind. When I first came to Indianapolis Police Department was under consent decree. We had a whole lot of issues here. We still have a whole lot of issues. I'm going to say that, we'll talk about that later. But we still have a lot of issues. But we were under consent decree. We were at the bottom. And when there was an officer-involved incident, what did we do? Who responded? I'll just throw it out. Who responds when there's a police-involved, officer-involved shooting resulting in homicide?
Clergy.
Clergy, right? What else? What they do? Come on, tell me what they do. It's okay, it's safe. It's safe. Let me give you a hint. I'll give you an on-ramp, all right? When I first saw, I forget the incident, but it was an officer involved in shooting resulting in a fatality. The community, meaning the clergy, called a meeting, demanded the mayor be called in. We want justice. Let's protest. What did the police department do?
Shut down.
Did the police department say, oh yeah, come on in, let's talk, let's go ahead and put it out there, let's talk about it? Did y'all do that? Rescue, come on.
No.
No. When those situations occur, what do?
Close rank.
Bunker up.
Shut down.
Shut down.
Shut that thing down. If you have a PIO, you say, hey, go ahead and talk real quick about this. Give them basics, and then we'll shut this down. We ain't sharing no information. Sometimes the city says, don't share too much because it's a liability issue. Community says, we want transparency, accountability. Fire the officer, as if that system changes, right? Fire the officer, haven't learned one thing about what happened with the incident. Didn't know whether or not the officer was provoked, challenged, confronted, attacked. We don't care. You should have de-escalated. Where's the accountability in that world? It's a game.
Right.
We hold you accountable. We didn't even agree to whatever we talking about. We just did it. And y'all react to it. How's that going to work out for us?
Not too good.
So we're in a different space now. So I'm going to talk about some of the behavioral change that happened within our community. Because we started from the bottom, and I'm going to share where we are right now. When we talk community-driven thing, I want to make sure we bring this into context. Community-driven thing means what? Who's driving?
Community.
Neighbors.
Community?
Community.
Residents.
Who's that?
Stakeholders. Neighborhood people.
Oh, thank you. Come on, say that again for the people in the back. All of us.
All of us.
We act as if the community is separate from you. So even in here, even after I spent 20 minutes talking about what the context is, the partnership, how we do it, the default is it's them.
Still.
Community-driven thing means all of us. And then we have certain things that are part of our emerging standard of accountability. Integrity to the process. If most people in the community don't know about the process, they don't know how this law enforcement thing, justice, works. They don't know. They don't know what you deal with. Transparency. Yeah, transparency. We need to see the emperor has no clothes. And sometimes the community has to realize, oh man, I ain't got no clothes. The folks in the neighborhoods, they got to realize they don't have no clothes either. Butt naked out here. Hey, can I say that? I'm sorry. Respect.
You're in a safe space.
Respect is to feel or show consideration or esteem for. I learned that online. Some of y'all didn't catch that. But anyway, to feel or show consideration or esteem for. Doesn't mean agreement. But if we don't have a measure of respect, accountability won't exist because there will be no agreement. And then the final piece, that piece of accountability. And I talk about community, department, and individual. Personal responsibility doesn't go out the door. All right, move fast. I'll just glean this. But this talks about the charter for the CRT. The thing I want to bring most attention to is the strategy. Change the tactical environment, you change the outcomes. You know that. Time, distance, barrier. You train on that. You train on that. You train on that. Who trains the rest of the neighborhood on that? Who trains leadership on that? You don't. It's a missing. So don't have community engagement if you don't help folks deal with changing the tactical environment. It's not just the domestic environment, it's the leadership environment in our communities. That's a tactical situation. Y'all with me?
Yes.
Okay. So changing the tactical environment, you change results. What did we have to do in the community? We had to slow the roll. Situation occurs, slow it down. Time, distance, barrier. Slow it down. Get the facts. Create a protocol, a system that people can now rely on a regular basis, that they can say, oh, something happened. Here's how we in the community, we hold this situation accountable. It slows it down so you can get the facts and the community can get the facts. Distance. We have to help people understand there's a process. And the incident doesn't immediately result in somebody getting fired. There's a process. Barrier. Sometimes people in the neighborhoods think that they need to be able to come to you, officer on the street, and say, fix this. What does that do for a beat officer? You held accountable for what happened in Memphis. What happened in Oakland. You held accountable to it. You didn't agree? There's no competence in it because there's really no measure in terms of making that happen. There's no alignment. Y'all with me?
Yes.
Now, I see you, the first thing I'm thinking when you come in is, I gotta fight against you, I can defend against you, and now the game is on. And all you did was come and say, hi, I just wanna help you. What you started with when you, why did you want to become a law enforcement officer? I want to serve and help people. Yeah, and these people are set up to say, you're here as an enemy. Hard for you to win in that situation. Moving on. Critical incident protocols. This is the system that supports community engagement. Because if you don't have a system that supports it and infrastructure that supports it, you're just pulling names out of a hat hoping you get the right one. So what we've done is we've set up a situation when something happens within 48 hours, leadership in the community is called together. Within 48 hours.